Welcome back to another enlightening episode of The Truth About the Plant, the show that takes you on a journey through the world of psychoactive plants and alternative wellness, all while delivering real, actionable insights you crave. I'm your host, Christina Dees. This is my equally talented co-host, Dr. Amanda Ryman. We're both here each week, bringing you answers to questions in 15 minutes or less. Dr. Ryman, why do we do this? Why are we here?
Why are we here? That's an existential question. Well, we are here, here, because we want you to have the best science-backed information that you can get around how to use cannabis safely and effectively. We want to make sure that you're safe. We want to make sure that you're informed. And let's face it, it is really difficult to find good, accurate information about cannabis on the internet. It's censored on pretty much every social media platform. You go and you Google a question, and you might get 100 different responses. Many of them completely contradict each other. So we are here to give you the truth. We are here to give you actionable information about cannabis so that you can get the info you need and get on with your day. Think of us as your really cool aunties or your kick-ass granddaughters, the women in your life who will always tell you the truth.
And ones that you want to hang out with.
Oh, yeah. And we're cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Although I think saying you're cool makes you not cool.
Probably. I'm sure that the kids these days would be like, cringe. Well, this is going to be a fun episode. We're diving into a topic that's as tricky as passing the mashed potatoes at a family dinner. How do you talk to your loved ones about cannabis? Well, it's that time of year again. Family and friends gather together with food, wine, and cannabis. So now that cannabis is legal in more places and becoming a more acceptable form of libation, you as a consumer may find yourself the resident herbal expert at your holiday table. What's more is there may be people in your life who could benefit from cannabis, but you just haven't had the chance to bring it up to them. So no time like the present. Amanda, how should people talk to their families about cannabis this holiday season?
Well, that's a great question. And I'm sure that our watchers and listeners may be asking themselves this question as they make their way home or to friends' houses for the holidays. So we're going to go over three main scenarios that you may encounter, and we're going to help you deal with each of them. They are not mutually exclusive, so you may find yourself juggling a few at a time at the very same gathering. They are the cannabis seeker, the cannabis shamer, and the cannabis unaware.
Oh, even before hearing about these different scenarios, I have a feeling I have experienced them all before. Can we start with the cannabis seeker?
Sure. So the cannabis seeker is the person in your life who really wants to try cannabis and has a million questions, which they assume that you, as a cannabis consumer, will be able to answer. Sometimes they are limited to product form. So what's the difference between smoking and edibles? Effects? How does cannabis make you feel? Or even concerns? Will I get addicted? The best way to handle the cannabis seeker is to speak from your personal experience, always stressing that everyone reacts differently to cannabis. And of course, explain to start low, go slow, tell them about the minimum effective dose, the impact of set and setting, and then refer them to the truth about the plant, where they can find all the information they need to make sure that their first cannabis experience is a good one.
That's right. Leave the fun part to us. Well, I definitely have people in my life who want to know about using cannabis. I get asked this question all the time. People find out what I do. But what about the cannabis shamer? This one sounds pretty fun, I think.
Yeah, the cannabis shamer is not as fun, but if you believe that growth is important, addressing the cannabis shamer in the right way actually can have the most impact, right? Because your cannabis seeker, they're already on board with cannabis. They're already speaking the truth about it. They think it's cool. They want to try it. They're coming to you to get advice. But even though cannabis is gaining more acceptance, it really has a very long history of demonization and propaganda. So for some people, especially those who live in very conservative areas where they're still getting anti-cannabis messaging, people that live in illicit markets or states where cannabis is not welcome, cannabis still has this really dark cloud hanging over her. So the cannabis shamer may make comments about the risks and harms of cannabis, point them out every time you go outside for a break, right? So making sure that when you use cannabis, you know that they feel that it is a bad thing for you to be doing. And even though their behavior is usually harmless, it can become annoying when you're trying to relax and enjoy yourself, right? Nobody wants to be told every time they go outside to take a puff off a joint that they're killing themselves, right? Like that's no fun, especially not over the holidays. So my advice is to start where they are and acknowledge that cannabis has been demonized for a very long time, right? So you're not telling them that they're crazy or that they're wrong or really bad, that they're stupid. You're basically telling them, I totally understand why you would feel that way, right? Cannabis has a very long history of propaganda in the US, and we've been getting messages for decades about how harmful it is. So I totally get that you'd feel that way. Another thing you want to do is to acknowledge that nothing is without harm, right? So you don't want to hit back by saying cannabis is completely harmless. There's absolutely no risk to using it. It's as safe as drinking water. We don't want to hit with that message because guess what? They're not going to believe you. They already think that cannabis is harmful, and you telling them to go from believing it is extremely harmful to not harmful at all, that is way too big a leap. So you definitely want to acknowledge that, yeah, there's some risks to using cannabis, but the risks to using cannabis are low and in many ways less risky than consuming alcohol. Then you want to calmly ask them about their specific concerns and listen to them rather than dismissing them. And this can be the hardest part, right? Because when somebody's a cannabis shamer and they're saying to you, well, it's a gateway drug and you're going to want to use heroin and harder drugs if you use cannabis, or it causes cancer, or it's going to make you lose IQ points, or any of the very common misconceptions we hear about cannabis, it's tough to listen to that seriously and take that person seriously when you know that those things aren't true. But it's important to acknowledge that in their mind, these things are true. So you want to listen to them and you want to say, well, I appreciate you having this concern, right? I mean, they're saying it because they don't want you to experience these harms because they care about you. So you want to acknowledge that you appreciate them caring about you and you appreciate them giving you this information. However, you also offer to educate them. So I have information that I'd love for you to take a look at. It's really going to address a lot of these concerns. And you're going to find out that you're not 100% wrong, that some of these things you've been hearing, there is a little bit of truth to them, but they've just been taken to a place where they're no longer valid. And then you're going to point them to the truth about the plant where they can get science-backed information about cannabis in 15 minutes or less, because on this show, we do not downplay potential risks of using cannabis. We present a very balanced view that I think even the cannabis shamer would appreciate.
I love it. You just sent them to the cool aunties and you let us take it from there. It's great advice because it can be tough to remember a time that not that long ago where cannabis was illegal everywhere. And many people, especially older adults, are still impacted by the negative messaging that was received about cannabis when they were younger. So what about the cannabis unaware?
So the cannabis unaware is the person in your life who is not using cannabis, but maybe they should be. Right?
Ooh.
So you may have an aunt who complains of sleep issues, but hates the way that Ambien makes her feel. You may have a friend with chronic pain who is worried about becoming dependent on opiates, or a nephew who's about to start cancer treatment and is concerned about the side effects of chemotherapy. Or it can be your mom who wants to cut down on drinking, but feels like it really helps her relax after a hard day. So for these folks, the conversation may simply be, have you considered cannabis? And that will likely lead to the cannabis seeker or shamer scenarios, which we've already talked about, right? So when you say, you say you're having trouble sleeping, you don't like Ambien, have you ever considered cannabis? And then they might say, I have been curious about that. I know that you're a consumer. Maybe you can tell me a little bit about that. What would the right product be for me? And how much should I take? And what are the potential side effects? And then you're really moving into the cannabis seeker scenario. Or they might say, are you kidding me? I would never use that. It's going to make me addicted and it's going to make me want to use heroin and it's going to make me crazy. And in that case, you're moving into a cannabis shamer scenario. And we've already talked about how to deal with that. So once you bring up the idea of cannabis to the cannabis unaware, to somebody where it may not even be on their radar, they're either going to show interest in it, and then you can help inform them about how to use it safely and properly and what your experiences have been. They're going to reject the idea, usually with some kind of assumption about cannabis that you can gently challenge, like we just talked about. And then, of course, as already mentioned, share with them the truth about the plant so that they can get more of their questions answered.
That's right. Well, that's right. You're going to send them to the cool aunties, and you're going to let us take it from there. Because, we've had so many good episodes in 2024. We've been doing this a long time, and we really are trying to answer those questions that the Canna Curious, the cannabis shamers, and the cannabis unaware are seeking. It sounds like a lot of preparing for these scenarios includes our podcast. And, we are so grateful to all of our subscribers and those who have tuned in during 2024. I want to thank our special guests that joined us in 2024. Amanda and I work really hard to bring you guys exciting content. We've got a lot more exciting content on the horizon for 2025, and including some really cool guests. So again, send us your questions. We'd love to hear from you. And this wraps up today's session on tackling the family cannabis convo. That was a fun one. So remember,
absolutely. And let us know how it went. Drop us a line and let us know who you came across in your holiday functions and how you handled it, because we'd love to hear.
That's right. Who did you run into this holiday season? And maybe you changed some minds, I'm hoping some of our content from our show, gave you a platform to be able to say, no, Aunt Linda, CBD actually helps you sleep. It could be good for you. You should give it a try. But you should go slow and low. And Amanda's favorite thing, tinctures.
Tinctures.
All right. Well, until next time, next year, you guys stay open, stay green, and keep the conversations blooming. We'll see you then.